Those who cannot bear any offensive speech do not believe in free speech.
Hello and welcome to the show. Colourful conversations with clergyman Pete and businessman Mark. This week we ask the question, will fighting political correctness get you elected? A YouTuber turned UKIP candidate who said he wouldn't even rape a female Labour MP has refused to apologise. Carl Benjamin wants to stand to become an MEP for South West for the UKIP in the European elections this coming May. Well, does he have any right to stand? Now, a member of UKIP's Swindon branch said Mr. Benjamin had only joined the local party recently and he should be deselected. At a news conference, Mr. Benjamin accused the media outlets of smearing him. And he said that he was never going to apologise for any of his crimes against political correctness. And in fact, he hated political correctness. Although his Twitter in 2016 hit the headlines when he responded to Labour MP Jess Phillips's concern over threats of sexual assault. And he said at the time, "I wouldn't even rape you. Feminism is cancer." Well, it seems to me as though Mr. Benjamin doesn't seem to care about what he says. It seems to be being bitter or better. So, Mr. Benjamin, here's a little poem. Being bitter or better. Bringing shame on your name, you've only yourself to blame. Too much hate in your debate will quickly seal your fate. But with pride on your side, you have nothing to hide. And when you elect to respect, people will positively connect.
My opinion of political correctness is very clear if we get the definition correct. Now, businessman Mark, I don't know what your definition of political correctness is, but I find that for me, it's different to being civil or being polite, which it isn't always. It sort of slides one into the other because political correctness means making a deliberate attempt to not talk about things in a way that could possibly offend. Whereas just being polite means if someone obviously is being offended, you, as far as is possible, while still telling the truth, try not to offend them. This is very different. So in political correctness, specific language is required and mandated if you're going to be politically correct. Whereas it's just being civil, it just means that you give some thought to other people's feelings in the way that you handle yourself. So that's how I would treat political correctness. And political correctness is an issue. It is a problem in that case, if you define it in that way. And that's how I believe that Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, is meaning it when he said in the UKIP press conference that he hated political correctness. I believe that is what he meant. He was talking about the requirement that you had to use certain language and you to avoid certain commonly used jokes and tropes simply because people choose to be offended by them. I know it's a fine distinction, but I think that is what he's meaning. So when he's talking about a past joke he's made, or a past comment he'd made on Twitter, both of which have been complained about, the one in which he said, "I wouldn't even rape you," for example, he's saying, well, you're just being politically correct by not allowing me to joke about rape. Now, the question is it really then just simply one of taste?
Yes. Well, surely being a politician, one should be always aware of political sensitivities and social sensitivities. And I know that what has been brought out in commentary, certainly Gerard Batten, who's the leader of UKIP, has said that Mr. Benjamin's comments were just purely made in satire. Well, that may be the case, and I know that that's certainly what has been Mr. Benjamin's argument all along. However, it doesn't get away from the fact that actually his comment has riled many individuals and certainly caused great offence.
The problem with with not hearing someone in context means that you can find a phrase to be harsher or more direct, more insulting than you would otherwise. Now, take, for example, Carl Benjamin's phrase, "I wouldn't even rape you." It was in the context of a discussion about sexual assault and also more broadly about male suicide, which he'd had an ongoing spat with that particular MP. And then he directed the tweet at her saying, "I wouldn't even rape you," after discussing sexual assault. So that's why the even's in there. I wouldn't want to sexually assault you. I wouldn't even rape you. And obviously the joke is that rape is more serious than sexual assault. So that was the context of the joke. Personally, I'll just give my view here. I think he was wrong to say it because rape is so serious. Regular listeners to the show will know that my views on rape are that you should have as serious a punishment for forcible rape. There's such a thing as statutory rape, and that's different. But it still should be enforced, but it should be handled differently. But when you talk about forcible sexual congress, which is rape, then it should be punished to the full extent of the law. And personally, I find it, in some cases, it's more serious than murder, because you're taking away someone's whole life sometimes by this act. You should not be allowed to do it. So certainly it's as serious as murder. In some cases, I would say it should be punished more harshly, or as harshly as murder if you're talking about the death sentence. You can't go any harsher. But whatever it is, it should be treated very, very seriously. And so because I find it so serious, it's not that I'm offended by rape, by using the word rape. It's that using it as a joke trivializes it, and so I think it was a mistake to use it. And if I were him, I would simply apologise in this case.
Well, clearly he's not going to, and he's made that point.
Yeah.
And as far as the UKIP are concerned, they have made the point that whoever you select as a candidate, some people are going to object and some people are going to walk away. But this is a little bit more than just political differences, just simply saying that that's the nature of the business. Unfortunately, Mr. Benjamin, though, has not really sort of necessarily got on well with the media. In fact, he believes that they are creating a campaign against him, like a dirty smear merchants, as they would describe him.
He described them as that, yes.
Yes, and that's the way that he sees them. And he says, "I'm not answering your questions, I'm not apologising for anything." But come back to the point, which is many people, as we're talking today about this subject, are clearly concerned about Mr. Benjamin's approach. He is a sensationalist, in my opinion. He's taken this standpoint and clearly continued this rhetoric to get attention.
Yes.
He's got attention.
Yes,
but here's the
that
big
is the
question.
point. Yes.
Should he, as a potential candidate, be removed, and should he even be a politician and represent anyone, for that matter, with that kind of attitude?
Well, my view on this is, people who hear some of my views may be surprised at this. Really, I would describe myself as a libertarian. I'm a Christian libertarian, so there are certain moral standards that I expect. But politically speaking, I'm in favour of certain forms of liberty, including that of free speech. And so I think he should be allowed to say it. The party can allow him or not to be their representative, depending on their views on it. But it's up to the voter, really. So I don't have a problem with him saying it. Then the voters decide whether they like him saying such things, or whether they thought he should have apologised. The point of Gerard Batten as the leader of UKIP is saying, well, I'm not going to be defending tweets or jokes from the past. He just thinks that's unreasonable, so he's not going to do it. But what's interesting with this particular case, with Sargon of Akkad, the YouTube channel of this Carl Benjamin, making him famous, is he going to be able to leverage that to get into this elected position? Is this method of taking on or really of taunting the media. Is this going to help in his campaign, getting him well known, and then he can support and get across his own actual points of view using his YouTube channel? I think it's risky, because although he's on Twitter and Facebook and mainly on YouTube, they could remove his channel. Now, he's actually got 3 channels on YouTube. He's got one called The Thinkery and one called Sargon of Akkad Live. So, they'd have to close down all 3 if they were going to stop him. But even then, there are alternatives. There's BitChute, for example, an alternative to YouTube. So maybe he doesn't need to be so concerned. I'd be interested to see. Be absolutely fascinating to follow his career and see whether in politics this approach works. I mean, there's another. We could broaden this out. Let's take in another politician who's just starting out, trying to become an MEP. Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lemon, his real name. So he's got a nickname, just as Sargon of Akkad does. But he hasn't been accepted as a candidate for UKIP because of his prior membership of the English Defence League. In fact, he was one of the founders of it. But has disavowed them now. But UKIP have this policy. That doesn't make any difference. They won't have people who've been members of such organisations which are regarded as racist. Just as a way of warding off the accusations that they themselves might be racist. So he is standing as an independent. He's very forthright. He's very antagonistic. He has support online. He uses YouTube, and I'm not sure. He probably uses other forms, maybe Periscope, the live video feed on Twitter as well. He uses a lot of live feed and keeps people interested by giving them updates on what he's doing, and often has a cameraman or camerawoman with him filming what he's doing. So, will his antagonistic approach? To give you an example, he was criticised by a Muslim leader today in an area where he was going to go and canvass for support in the north of England, and he went to went to the place. It was actually a church where this Muslim leader was, and asked him to come out, and he spoke to him. So very direct, and it comes across as quite confrontational. Is this going to work? Do we have a new breed of politics?
Well,
more direct. Is political correctness on its way out?
There may be something in that, but there is a particular point about the main question, which is, will fighting political correctness get you elected?
Yes.
Now, Tommy Robinson is a controversial character. Nobody's going to dispute that. But the rhetoric is the point, the language.
Yes,
And language is very, very important to politicians, and particularly not only holding to the terms of policy, of course, which is really crucial, but also how it engages and resonates with the audience. If constituents do believe that they're actually honourable individuals, that they're credible individuals, then there is one side of a person's character, and of course, obviously, there's the political policies that they represent. But the clear differential, I think, here is that Carl Benjamin has a very, very clear tactic. He's gone for the sensationalist approach. He's using what has been seen as very controversial language. Tommy Robinson is a different type of character, but I agree that obviously is this building up a swelling of a new type of politician, which is challenging the conventional traditional approach where you have to be politically correct, and the political correctness has for some time now, some people might say being a little bit too politically correct to the point where you can't even make any comment about an individual. And so are we actually now, is this what it really comes to, that we're actually starting to see that the frustrations built up are really as a result of the likes of the Carl Benjamins and the Tommy Robinsons, where there's this undercurrent where people are now getting so frustrated that they are starting to speak out.
Yes.
Is that what we're now seeing?
Well, I would like to see an end to political correctness. When it first sprung up as a term, it was describing things, such things as saying, referring to women as ladies, and this supposed that being demeaning, but and the problem with it is actually it's the opposite. It's being polite, and so political correctness is actually not really political, and it's certainly not correct. That's the problem with it. It itself is the wrong use of language.
Right.
I mean, where I have a problem with that, not being able to use certain words, but you can sort of learn, people don't like those words, and not use them. But when you're then required to use certain words, that's taking a step far. Then political correctness has really gone too far. Can fighting it enable you to win, and will this bring about a change, a loss of political correctness? I don't know. I think what we're seeing is an entrenchment on both sides. Those who insist on political correctness, and those. I think that the likelihood is then it's going to get worse.
Well, I was going to.
But there'll be two sides to it.
I'm going to hark back to some of our slightly older listeners who will remember the days and times in the 70s and 80s where comedians such as Bernard Manning really built their career on in political incorrectness, shall we say.
Yes.
And of course, obviously, as time has moved on, we've gone to the more correct approach, as some people may say. But listeners, I mean, what do you think here? The European Parliament elections are going to take place on the 23rd of May 2019, and will we see Carl Benjamin become an MEP? Well, we will have to see. But do you think that this style of politics is something that we're going to see more of? Or do you think that these are just people that just fade into the ether and we'll never see them again? Well, your vote will count. Why not log on to markandpete.com and let us know your thoughts? Words do matter. Well, join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.